How far would you go to protect someone you loved, someone you knew, or even someone fleeing persecution as a refugee? Well, Rabbi Susan Silverman, the sister of the American comedian Sarah Silverman, is rallying the country to help protect over 40,000 African asylum seekers that are about to be deported in a very, very unusual way. Her mission, along with lots of other rabbis, is inspired by perhaps one of the most known and beloved refugees of all time, Anne Frank. Rabbi Silverman, thank you so much for joining us from Jerusalem.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit, what is the Anne Frank Home Sanctuary movement?
So the movement is getting Israelis to commit to taking in African asylum seekers if they get a tzav gerush, if they get an order of deportation, that they would have to either go to prison indefinitely or leave the country, likely to their deaths, and certainly to great, great, great difficulty and hardship.
Now, what is unusual is that you're advocating for essentially hiding these asylum seekers. How would that be done?
So that would be done by Israelis saying, come live with us, come live in our homes, and we will protect you as best we possibly can from the government. What we really hope is that it doesn't come to that. We really hope that the government will see that Israelis do not want to send people to their deaths, that our values, our history, and our vision of ourselves as individuals and as a nation does not include deporting people to their deaths. That's not the meaning of a Jewish state.
Now, how did you come up with this idea, and why? I mean, it's obvious why Anne Frank would be an inspiration, but is there more to that story?
So there is more to that story. The reason that I started calling it the Anne Frank Initiative, and I think really formally we're going to call it Asylum Seeker Seeking Sanctuary, Mivikshe Miklat, Miklat Lemivikshe Miklat in Hebrew, but the reason I started using Anne Frank is because of an Eritrean asylum seeker that I met here in Israel, and he's this remarkable person who was in a refugee camp in Ethiopia after he had fled Eritrea. There, he read the diary of Anne Frank, and he had never heard of the Holocaust, and he was so devastated to learn that Anne Frank had died. And he was in this refugee camp where he had to be strong, but he kept crying for weeks and weeks. And he translated the diary of Anne Frank into Tigrinya. And then he had to flee Ethiopia, and he was coming through Sinai toward Israel, and he kept saying to himself, the people of Anne Frank will protect me. The people of Anne Frank will let me in, will take care of me. And he got to Israel, and he crossed the border, and the soldiers came, and the soldiers were perfectly good to him. They came, and he had to get down on his knees and put his hands in the air, and he looked up at the soldier, and he said, have you ever heard of Anne Frank? In his travels from Eritrea to Israel, his backpack was stolen and his translation was stolen, but he has redone it since. And he was the inspiration to me to call this the Anne Frank movement, to informally call it the Anne Frank movement, because of what she represented for this African asylum seeker who came to Israel for help.
Well, Rabbi Silverman, I think this movement is going to gain a lot of traction here in Israel. We're interested to see how it evolves, and we're going to keep our eye on it to see how viewers can get involved. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And if people want to be in touch with us, there's an email address, which is miklatisrael@gmail.com, MIKLAT Israel@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.